Of parallel and perpendicular lines, I think that this is something that you have done before, but just to make sure everyone has it, because it's an important idea. It comes up in my calculus class. This is one of these things you have to know. Okay? You're not, but if you're taking honors geometry as a freshman, you're on track to take calculus your senior year. Okay. Now you do have some choices. You will have to take pre-cal no matter what. That's part of the deal when you take 7th grade pre-algebra and go on from there. You're going to have to take pre-cal. But then after that, you could take one of the 2 AP calculuses that we have. You could also take AP statistics, which is, I think, a really good class. Jake's looking forward to that one. Excellent. And you could also take college algebra, either dual credit or non-dual credit. Frankly, I would expect, if you were going to take college algebra, I'd expect you to take the dual credit class. Yeah. And even that might be a little slow for you. So, anyway. So slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. First of all, a reminder of how you find slope for a line containing the points x1, y1, and x2, y2. The slope of the line is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let me just point out, if this has never been pointed out to you before, let me be the first, although someone probably has. We could do y1 minus y2 as long as we do x1 minus x2. Yeah, the order is not important as long as you're consistent. Okay? You can't do the numerator one way and the denominator a different way. You have to do them both the same way. There are a lot of things in math that are that way where it's like, yeah, it's your choice, but once you've chosen, now you have to keep doing it the same way. So, let's find the slopes of the lines through the given points. This should take very little time for us. So the slope for this line, when you guys see 2 points like that, and I'm just curious, by a show of hands, how many of you would start with 7 in the numerator and how many of you would start with 9 in the numerator? So how many of you would start with 7 in the numerator? The numerator is the top.
Oh, I know that, but
So 7 minus 9.
To find the slope.
How do you find the slope?
We just went over that.
So
Be with us, Sammy. It's right there.
Yeah, it's Friday.
Yeah. Less drawing, more looking at. So how many of you would start with 7?
Like 7 minus 9?
7 minus negative 9, yeah. And how many of you would start with the negative 9? Interesting. Okay. It doesn't really matter. I'll show you that it comes out the same way for both. If I start with the 7, that'll be 7 minus negative 9 over negative 3 minus 4. That'd be 16 over negative 7. If you do it the other way, we would get that the slope was negative 9 minus 7 over 4 minus negative 3. That would give us a negative 16 over a positive 7. Are those the same thing? Yeah.
Because it's still going to make the correction thing.
Yeah. So negative 16 over 7 is the same thing as negative 16 over negative 7 is the same thing as negative 16 over 7 is the same thing as putting a negative sign out in front and saying it's negative 16 sevenths. Those are all the same. Okay? All right. So let's find the slope for this next one. So the slope here would be negative 3 minus negative 3 over, I'm going to do it 8 minus negative 2. Negative 3 minus negative 3 is what? 0. Over 8 minus negative 2 is
10.
10. What is 0 over 10?
0.
0. Why?
How are you gonna have 0 tens?
0 divided by any number is 0.
Okay. Because, yeah, we have 0 tenths. This would be like breaking something into 10 pieces, and then, I've sliced a pizza into 10 equal pieces, and I've given you none of them.
Or
How much pizza do you have then?
None.
You have none. Pardon, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just saying you could eat all.
Let's do this one. Here, the slope would be 2 minus 11. I'll do it in that order this time. Over negative 5 minus negative 5. That's negative 9 over 0, which is,
Undefinable.
it's not undefinable, but undefined. You were close. Closer than the people who were telling me it was 0.
Oops. I said I didn't say anything. I just did this.
Yeah. So why is this undefined? Well,
How do you have
You
nine?
can't have 9
negative
zeros.
9 zeros.
you could have 9 zeros, but what this says is, remember, the bottom number tells you how many pieces you have.
0.
So you've taken something and you've broken it into 0 pieces. How exactly do you break something into 0 pieces?
Isn't it in one piece even if you just leave it? So
Yeah.
it would just be nothing.
It doesn't make any sense, does it? That's why this is undefined. There are a lot of things in math that at one point or another you were told you couldn't do, and then later on you found out you could do them. I'll give you an example. When you were in elementary school, you probably had a teacher at some point tell you, now you can't take 5 away from 3.
They did tell us that.
They did tell you that. What they really meant was, you can't take 5 away from 3 and still have a positive number. You have to have a new kind of number that you didn't know about yet. You had to have negative numbers. There are several things in math that are that way. For example, another one, what is the square root of 16?
4.
4. Can you take the square root of negative 16?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is it?
4.
No, it isn't.
It's negative. Oh, wait, no.
You can.
It's not negative 4 either.
Undefined.
You can. You'll learn about this next year. You have to learn about imaginary numbers.
Wait, are you learning that, Jake?
Not yet. They'll get to it. You have to learn about imaginary numbers. Okay? There are all kinds of things where people will say, you can't do that, and then you learn about another kind of numbers, and it's like, well, actually you can, but you have to use a different kind of numbers. With division by 0, you can't divide by 0 ever. Never, ever, 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 ever. Okay? There's not going to suddenly be a new class of numbers where division by 0 is a good idea. Okay? It's the one thing in math, no matter how far up you get, that you're like, oh, nope, we never divide by 0. Can't do it. It's the one thing. It's sort of like the tree in the midst of the garden where it's like, you can eat of anything else, just not that one. All right. So, aren't we still on the bottom of that page?
Are we? Whoops.
My page still has stuff. I was like, why is everybody turning the page? If 2 lines are parallel, then they have equal slope. So here, find the slope of any line parallel to the line containing negative 6, 5, and negative 12, negative 3. By the way, did you know that if lines are parallel, their slopes were the same?
Yes.
Okay. So the slope here is going to be negative 3 minus 5 over negative 12 minus negative 6. So it's negative 8 over negative 6 What does that reduce to?
4/3.
4/3. Thank you, ma'am. So the slope parallel to that, and I just usually write it this way, the slope of the parallel is also equal to 4/3. Yes, ma'am.
Why don't they just say find the slope of the line that has those two? Why does it have to be finding the slope of any line parallel to it?
Well, because I want to know if you know that parallel lines have the same slope.
That's not fun.
It's not hard either, is it?
Unless you forget.
Well, yeah, I suppose so.
Don't forget.
All right, so then let's talk about lines that are perpendicular. Have you done that before?
Probably yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. With you?
Yes, but what about their slopes?
It's like the exact opposite. They're the reciprocals.
Yeah, they're the reciprocal, and we have to change the sign.
So they're negated or they're like not positive?
So if the original was positive, the slope of a line perpendicular to that will be negative. And they'll be reciprocals of each other. Reciprocals, remember, is where you take a fraction and the numerator and the denominator switch places. Okay? So, let's find the slope of a line perpendicular to the line containing the points -7, -8, and 3, -4. So the slope of the original will be -8 minus -4 over -7 minus 3. So that's -4 over -10 is 2/5. So what will the slope of the perpendicular be?
Negative 5/2.
Yeah, -5 over 2.
Don't make fun of rejection.
Okay? All right, for this next one, you could graph them. But I'll just tell you right now, if you graph them and then tell me that they're parallel or perpendicular based on the way that they look, you'd be like, so, do you want me to judge everything based on how it looks? Okay? Probably.
It's good for some people that we don't.
I'm happy that not everything is about looks. Or as my dad would say, my face, I don't mind it because I'm behind it.
Oh.
He doesn't care about his face because he doesn't have to see it all the time. All right. So what we need to do is we need to find the slopes so that we can see. And part of it is although if they were way off, you could probably tell. But if they were really close to being parallel or really close to being perpendicular, you might not be able to tell for certain. So let's find the slopes. So the slope of line AB would be -2 minus -6 over 7 minus 10. That's 4 over -3. The slope of CD would be 8 minus 5 over 0 minus 4. That's 3 over -4. So are these parallel, perpendicular, or neither?
Neither.
They are neither,
Because the signs are the same.
Oh,
because the signs are the same. They are reciprocals of one another, but they're not opposite reciprocals. Yes, ma'am.
Can people who have never learned cursive still read it?
Oh my gosh.
You don't have to necessarily be able to write in cursive to be able to read cursive. You could learn to read it without having learned to write it.
What if they just looked at it?
You
When
can
I was in first grade.
If they've never seen it before,
Yeah.
it depends on how fancy the cursive is.
That's true.
Yeah, some cursive writing is, closer to printing than others, and then some of it's very loopy and all this other kind of stuff.
So could you use it as a secret message system?
I suppose. I have had people who lament that students don't write in cursive anymore. And they're like, we could, as teachers, we could write in cursive and none of our students would be able to read it. And I'm like, whatever, okay. I stopped writing in cursive probably in college.
The second they stop telling us to, I stop writing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do it for fun, but
I never really understood what the need was for it.
I've forgotten
you can already write
If it looks good for you.
I mean, it does look nicer if you have a good hand, but all right. So
You're terrible.
if you have lines on a graph, the easiest way to find the slope is to find 2 points on the graph that go through lattice points. Remember, lattice points are places on the grid where your horizontal and vertical line intersect each other. Find 2 of those and just count the slope. It's much faster to count the slope than it is to calculate the slope. So for example, if I'm looking at line A, and you have to look at these pretty carefully to make sure that these are going through lattice points. Looks to me like I've got one here, and the next closest one is here.
I'm so confused.
What are you confused about? I'm putting points on a line.
Why are we putting them there?
Well, if I put it here, is it going through a lattice point, which is what I just discussed,
Oh,
where the horizontal and vertical grid lines.
We're a dumb blonde.
And I usually go ahead and check to see if it's the same distance to the next one. If it's not, then probably one of the ones I did was wrong. Okay? So from A to B, if we just draw in a quick slope triangle, that's up 1 and to the right 3. So the slope of A is 1/3. For line B, what's the slope of a horizontal line? 0. For line C, let's see, I can use this point. It kind of looks like it hits at that point, but does it actually? Well, if I wanted to, I would go to the next lattice point, which is all the way down here. Is this point right here the same distance away from this point as it is from this point? Then this one's probably wrong. You're going to have some near misses. Be careful of those.
I thought the next lattice point was like one up from the letter C. Like 2 blocks down. Yeah, there.
Down here?
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
Our paper. Where you
Yeah, it misses that, doesn't it? So let's come all the way down here. Now, if you happen to skip over one in the middle, that's fine. You're just going to have to reduce. Okay? So it's not a big deal. Find ones that you're absolutely certain of. So that goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be -7/4. What's the slope of line D?
Nothing. Undefined.
Undefined.
Oh. That's what I'm
After guessing a couple of things,
talking about.
it is undefined. The slope of a vertical line is undefined. Now, if you think about it, that kind of makes sense. Slope is a measure of how steep a line is. How steep is that?
Steep.
It's infinitely steep, isn't it? It doesn't go left or right at all. It just goes straight up. So there's no number that we could put on it that would tell you how steep it is.
Is there a number for steep?
Slope.
We should invent a new number.
Slope is the number that tells you the steepness of a line.
Who made the number? first? Who decided that this was going to be that?
I thought earlier.
Okay, when you do this is going to be that, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Like for the number 3, who was like squiggles.
Oh,
that's
the-
gonna mean 3.
Those are Arabic numerals.
There should be another one for steep.
A single number for steep?
Yeah.
Okay,
Steep.
moving on. Any line parallel to line C would have a slope of what?
-7/4.
-7/4. Any line perpendicular to A,
-3.
its slope would be -3. What about any line perpendicular to D?
Undefined.
0, 0, 0.
0.
What?
An undefined line is a vertical line. Perpendicular to that would be a horizontal line,
So like B.
and its slope would be 0, exactly.
That's crazy.
All right, let's do a little bit of graphing. It says graph the line that satisfies each description. All right, so for this first one, we want a graph with a line of a slope 3/4 that passes through the point R having coordinates 5, 1. What should we do first?
5, 5, 1.
Yeah, we have to plot the point first. You have to have a place to start. 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. And on this one, students sometimes get stuck. They're like, oh, you gave us a bad grid. I can't do this.
Yeah, you can.
What would you need to do?
Go down.
Go down 3 and then go which direction?
Left.
To the left 4.
Well, you're not going to go right 4. It's not going to solve the problem.
Yeah, that would make it wrong, wouldn't it?
And it wouldn't even be on the graph.
So it looks something like this. Anytime you're drawing a line, your line should go all the way across your grid and have arrows on the ends of it and the whole deal. All right, next one, an undefined slope that passes through the point A. Oh, sorry, I didn't label this point. Should have done that. At -5, -2. Again, what do we have to do first? Got to find a point. 5, -2. If you're going to go someplace, it's important to know where you are before you start going a direction, right? So that's point A. And it has an undefined slope.
Up and down.
Pardon?
Vertical.
Be a vertical line. Just by the way, the equation of this line would be x equals -5. Because every point on that line, the x-coordinate's -5. It doesn't matter what the y-coordinate is.
Yeah, horizontals. Say it was like perpendicular to that line and be y coordinate -2.
Be y equals -2. The other way to think about it with the equations for those, if it only goes through the x-axis, it's going to be an x equals equation. And if it only goes through the y-axis, it'll be a y equals equation. Okay? All right, let's do these last two. This one requires some work. It passes through the point -2, 5. So that's point P. And it's perpendicular to the line through 10, 2, and K, which is at 4, -2. Now, you don't have to graph LK. You just need to graph this line. Well, I need to find the slope of LK. And since I don't think my grid goes to 10, I'm going to calculate it. So that'll be 2 minus -2 over 10 minus 4. That's 4 over 6, which is 2/3. So the slope of the perpendicular will be
-2/3.
-3 over 2.
-3 over 2. So from here, we'll go down 3 and to the right 2. And especially if I'm doing this without a ruler, I just keep going till I get near the edge. And it looks something like that. All right, for this last one, it passes through the point 3, -2. Didn't give me a point for that to name it, but I'll go and just put it there. And it's parallel to the line through R at coordinates 5, -7, and T at coordinates -11, -19. So I need to find the slope of RT. That'll be -7 minus -19 over 5 minus -11. See, that's a positive 12 over 16 is 3/4. So the slope parallel will also be 3/4. And it goes right to the edge there. And looks something like this. Any questions about that? Okay, I do have a worksheet for you.